Slide 10 talks about how to using the conditions of teaching and learning in a culturally sensitive manner. Here we refer to Harper and Lance, in 1986, talk about these 10 cross-cultural curative factors that are common factors across all cultures, and that understanding these is fundamental in the helping process in terms of working with clients individually, but I also believe that it also is fundamental in working with a diverse workforce. You need to understand worldview, respect, hope, helper attractiveness, control, rites of initiation, cleansing experiences, existential realization, and physical interventions of the individuals that you're working with. In terms of worldview respect, don't concentrate exclusively on your own value orientation or cultural beliefs, but use what is compatible to the cultural beliefs of the person with whom you are working with. Hope. You need to be able to give a sense of hope to whomever you're working with about the power that that individual has through symbols of achievement and certificates in your competency and your knowledge of your skills. Helper attractiveness is the perception that you give individuals in terms of your warmth, your kindness, your appearance of competence, concern, integrity, empathy, which is universal to in a cultural context, but you also need to be sensitive that it fits the culture of the individual that you're working with. Control, making sure that the individual learns something from you and they walk away with a sense of mastery and control. And that mastery and control may vary from culture to culture. Rites of initiation is universally includes two elements, one of symbolic of death and a movement towards rebirth using rituals and ceremonies. And it may be rewards that you might give an employee or an individual. All right, kudos for the new behaviors or new skills that they have developed. Cleansing experiences is the universal recognition that we're not perfect, we make mistakes, and this is referred to as catharsis in Western culture, but it could be something different in other cultures depending upon whom you're working with. Existential realization, helping the individual discover, create, and the experience of meaning in life by using questions, comments, suggestions, activities, and personal interests, and challenging the vacuum that may exist. And it could be a professional vacuum, that may exist that you might be challenging. And then physical interventions, the process of helping an individual through medication or treatment or sacred cathartic rituals. Okay. The point I'm getting to is understanding Harper and Lance's cross-cultural curative factors and what makes the supervisor culturally competent can be applied with the several principles of effective learning, looking at the 12 effective adult learning principles that Villa brings out. And what I hope to be able to do is demonstrate or illustrate how this can be applied. All right? Adults learn, you need to be able to have a good needs assessment in terms of what are the training needs of that individual in identifying what needs to be learned. But if you're going to be culturally sensitive, you need to understand the employee's ethics and value orientation in terms of the way they view human nature, the way they view human nature relationships. In other words, do they view human nature as being basically good, evil, or both? Do they look at human nature relationships in harmony or in mastery over nature? What is their time orientation? Do they view time as the past, the present, or the future, and their activity orientation in human relationships in terms of how the one develops themselves? So as you do this needs assessment, you need to be able to not superimpose your values in terms of what that individual needs, but be able to tune into their value orientation in terms of the staff person. The other learning principle, and how I'm going to illustrate how this the other learning principle is safety in the environment and learning principles, or the learning process. Okay, and the point is that staff must have trust in several areas: the competence of the supervisor in the instruction design, the feasibility and relevancy of what they're learning, the interaction with others, the sequence of activities, and that the environment is non-judgmental. A culturally sensitive supervisor recognizes that there are differences in the levels of trust that of the staff person that you're working with, depending upon who that individual may be, because of how they may have been victimized because of either their race, their ethnicity, their gender, or their sexual orientation. The point is that you need to be sensitive to that individual and what it takes to make the environment feel safe for them, in that learning process. Okay. The third point is sound relationships between the supervisor, teacher, the learner staff, and among the learner staff, among the learner and other staff. Okay, relationships are very important. You need to be, and building sound relationships involves respect, safety, listening, open communication, and humility. And the power of that relationship should never be underestimated. And it must transcend likes and dislikes. Okay, so a culturally sensitive supervisor will consider the characteristics that one shares with all individuals in terms of the biological heritage, or the similar characteristics that one shares with some people, the social and cultural heritage, and also the uniqueness of that individual. And so what you might need to do is apply a little bit of Harper and Lance with the experience of existential realization in terms of understanding the meaning of work life and its effective use by questioning, making comments, suggestions, activity, and personal interest on your part in working, with that supervisee and where they might be in terms of their diversity or their differences in the workforce. Okay. The fourth principle is in learning deals with the sequencing of content and reinforcement and how you do that. Well, a culturally sensitive supervisor will look at the individual staff person in terms of their time orientation and whether their style of learning and cultural patterns are either individualistic or collectivistic. Okay, and an understanding that employee's worldview coupled with some form of cleansing experiences might be helpful in terms of recognizing that the employee is human and imperfect. And what you do is try to help them get rid of old practices and develop new work practices. And that might differ from culture to culture in terms of their background. The fifth learning principle deals with praxis, action with reflection and or learning by doing. Okay, and the word praxis is derived from Greek, and it means action with reflection. So here, what we would say is that if you're going to be culturally sensitive, what you need to be able to do is combine all of Harper and Lance's principles along with the differences of the learning style of that employee. Okay. The sixth principle deals with respecting learners as decision makers, and that is allowing them to have input in the decision-making process. And a culturally sensitive supervisor will discern differences between their values and what is important to them and the values of the employee that may be influenced by their race, their ethnicity, or their cultural differences. Okay, so you need to be able to assess where that employee's decision-making process might be while keeping in mind where that employee's worldview and existential realization experiences may have been. Okay.